The doors of the grand hall blew open as I stood at my own enthronement, about to marry a woman I'd never met. A disciple named Chen stormed the aisle, screaming that the ceremony was a sham, that marrying her off like this was shameless. The crowd froze. I had no idea why a stranger would risk everything to stop my wedding. The sacred Lord tore into Chen, reminding him he was one outburst away from losing his disciple title, and Chen didn't care. Meanwhile, I stood there dazed, as a servant murmured "young master" at me like I was supposed to know what to do. Truth was, I'd only just woken up inside this body, and the story I'd landed in had already cast me as its villain. Then a system flickered to life in my head, a status window nobody else could see, ranking every soul's fortune from black to gold. Chen's came back green, fortunes chosen, favored by fate itself. Mine came back black. Villains don't live long in stories like this one, and now I had a glowing reminder of exactly how little time that gave me. Chen fumed that the whole sect fawned over me despite his own obvious talent, and honestly, some petty part of me loved watching fate's favorite squirm. Even King stayed silent, which stung more than I expected for someone I barely knew. Then Chen rounded on me directly. "You really think you can hide behind that blank face? All you're good at is taking advantage of people." The sacred lord's face went thunderous. Chen has no regard for consequences, he growled, and one of his men stepped forward, vowing to drag Chen down and force an apology out of him for insulting me. Lightning cracked from the guard's palm. Chen just grinned, fire erupting around his fists. "Bring it on," he said, and the whole hall braced for a fight. Turns out that guard was a sacred prince, a true powerhouse, and somehow Chen held his own against him, cultivation gap and all. The elders went pale. The onlooking girls just swooned harder. Watching it, one thought hit me. Of course, the world's real protagonist gets to look devastating while wrecking my wedding day. Since I'd already made an enemy of the story's favorite son, I figured I had nothing left to lose. Kinge needled me over tea, accusing me of playing indifferent. Was I secretly afraid of what she'd do to me? I said nothing. When she went to refill my cup with hands shaking, I just told her to let the servants handle boiling water so she wouldn't burn herself. Kinge's heart wavered toward me, and I watched Chen's fortune bleed 10 points because of it. That's when it clicked. I could shift these fortunes myself just by acting, so I reached over and took her hand right in front of him. He went white with rage. Things I thought were finally getting interesting. Chen roared for me to get my hands off her, but Chuxian, the sacred prince, stepped in to answer for me instead. I nearly laughed. I knew this story's shaped by heart. He'd fight, he'd win, he'd earn the crowd, then circle back to humble me riding that same halo. Not this time. I wasn't handing my life to some tired script. King stepped between us. This was her fight, she said, not Chuxian's. Chen turned to me instead, suddenly stammering, "Young Master Gu." Fear at last. I smiled and asked if he really thought I was afraid of him, then let a fraction of my true strength spill out. He froze. In insignificant tricks, he stammered. I just smiled wider. I came at him and put him on the ground before he could land a single real hit. The crowd around us went dead quiet. His aura alone made people want to flee. Even Kinge, watching, admitted to herself I was frightening. Someone from the upper realms she couldn't afford to cross. Chen just knelt there in the dust. Then the system pinged. Outshining fortunes chosen in public had jumped my fate value 50 points, and oddly his rose too. I asked if killing him now would push it higher. The system warned me, hurting someone that close to the protagonist would unleash variables even I couldn't predict. Better to wait, I decided, build quietly, stay clear of him, and strike only when the moment was mine. Even keeping Kinge away from him, I realized, wouldn't touch his fate. Around us, the sect elders were falling over themselves, calling me a god among men, and I played humble, brushing it off as nothing. Then Chen, bloodied and broken on the ground, snapped, screaming my name, swearing this was all my doing, before lunging at me with everything he had left. Go to hell. I barely moved. "You overestimate yourself," I told him, and put him down again. The crowd turned on him instantly. He'd already been spared once, and this sneak attack after mercy was shameless, an embarrassment to the whole sect. Kinge held back through it all, still shouted that she was the sect's brightest hope, its future. Nobody was listening anymore. Chuxian wasn't done just beating Chen down. Now he demanded Kinge as his reward for the night, and the sacred lord ordered her to give in. Our sect's future weighed against her refusal. She whispered, "All right," while Chen screamed her name from where he lay broken. I watched his fortune crater as mine spiked. Walking away, I let myself savor it. Breaking a man slowly, dragging out hope until his last breath was troublesome, sure, but I wasn't going to lie to myself about it. It was fun. The blood on the floor behind me was proof my plan was working exactly the way I wanted. With Yi Chen thrown in a cell, the sacred lord leaned on King harder, reminding her Yi Chen could never match what I brought to the table. She agreed to his face, then quietly said she'd go visit Yi Chen anyway. Meanwhile, I called in my informant to see what else I could dig up. My informant confirmed it. The sacred lord's wife, a noblewoman from the upper realms, had been dragged back there years ago, and he was betting King's bond with me could help find her. That's why he needed me so badly. I told them to keep watching Yi Chen too. His fortune was worth harvesting. Alone, I wondered just how far I could push two people fate itself had marked. Then the system pinged a starter pack. Inside sat a broken world seed. Nurture it, and I could grow an entire world inside myself, commanding endless luck in my own life and death. Complete that, and could anyone even kill me? I didn't hesitate. System, use up all my points, I ordered, and felt it slam into me. The breakthrough tore out of me as a column of light that split the night sky, visible across the entire sect. Disciples and elders froze mid-step, staring up in dread, muttering about what force could throw off an aura like that. Even King, on her way to Yi Chen's cell, stopped cold at the sight. What I didn't see was the second voice living inside King, needling her about her own power while she snapped back to shut it up. I only cared about Yi Chen. My breakthrough had burned through every fate point I had, but the system would keep them coming. I stood over him, bloodied and kneeling, and told him plainly, no matter how hard he trained, I was the one extorting his fortune. I'd warned Yi Chen myself, drain his fortune too fast and it'd be the death of him. That part wasn't a threat, it was fact. My watchers reported what came after, him slumped in chains, muttering that in 3 years he'd never once tasted a defeat like this. Then out of the dark, a hand reached for him, and a woman's voice called him by a name only she used, Zio Chen. What I only pieced together later was that the hand belonged to a hidden master of his, someone strong enough that when she let just a flicker of her real power slip loose down there, the beast guarding that dungeon froze and stammered, "Master." Whoever she was nowhere near as harmless as a prisoner's cell should allow. Yi Chen demanded to know why she hadn't stepped in sooner. She admitted she'd felt a monstrous power spike shake the sky and feared it was tied to whoever'd ruined him, so she'd stayed hidden rather than risk exposing herself. Then she warned him off King and off me. My gold and my backing, she said, weren't something they could fight head-on, not yet. She called him reckless and immature, but agreed getting him out came first. She suspected the dungeon held other buried masters too. Then Yi Chen smiled. Taiyuan Sacred Land's rivals only feared a supreme elder who'd been dead 200 years. Leak that secret and the sect would burn. She warned him disciples would die by the hundreds. He didn't care, he wanted every one of them to pay. Word of that shockwave had already reached the sect elders, one of them wondering aloud if it was some remnant soul I'd unlocked. I didn't correct him. That same night, King sat with me under the stars, calling me thoughtful, calling Yi Chen a name not even worth remembering anymore, and asking whether the upper realm was really as vast as I'd described. Then she asked it straight: if she followed me to the upper realm, would I protect her? My system pinged instantly. Her feelings for me had shifted. Yi Chen's fortune ticked down, mine climbed. Every point he lost fed me. She caught herself fumbling, backpedaling, then asked outright if I meant to trade myself to buy his freedom. I said nothing to confirm it. I told her plainly Yi Chen's mistakes were his own to answer for, not mine. She flinched, then handed me her deepest secret anyway, a rare 9-yin physique, perfect for cultivation, hers alone to reveal. The system confirmed it, her submission complete. Yi Chen's fortune gutted below 400. She'd weighed the sect's survival against her own value and chosen me. Being the villain suited me fine. King dropped to her knees and said it plain. If I could save Taiyuan's sacred land from ruin, she'd give herself to me, body and the rare 9-yin physique inside it. My system went quiet, then pinged with a real question. If she offered herself willingly, would that even count as backlash? No answer came, just dread. I knew nothing this good came free, the doors sealed behind us. King asked if I wasn't afraid she'd sell out the secret I'd handed her, that the Supreme Elder had been dead 200 years. I told her I trusted her character, then told her flat out her body wasn't buying my loyalty. Go home. She reached for me anyway, and I pushed her back, told her to have some self-respect. Walking off, I heard her doubt herself out loud. Had she really read me wrong this whole time? My system answered for her. Her fortune ticked up 20 points, and Yi Chen's dropped 100. If King's was growing, I knew exactly where to collect the rest. Word came back confirming what I'd suspected. Yi Chen wasn't surviving alone. A dead master's remnant spirit was riding shotgun inside him, so I went straight to his cell. He played dumb, snarling that he didn't know what I meant. I dropped the act myself. Enough hiding, senior. Whoever you are, that isn't very becoming of a master. Fire answered instead of words, and out of it stepped her, the master herself, red hair burning like the flame she'd come from. Yi Chen screamed that I'd already stolen his king and now had my eyes on his master too. I ignored him. Good birds pick the best trees, I told her. Wasn't guarding a broken boy like him, wasting everything she had left. I made her the offer straight, follow me, and I wouldn't just protect her, I'd give her back a real body and restore her all the way to her prime. Yi Chen begged her not to listen, screaming that I was trying to steal her too. My system clocked it anyway, his mind cracking, his fortune bleeding into mine. Success. She didn't bite, not yet. Yi Chen had saved her life once, and she wasn't walking out on that debt so easily. But she'd think it over, she said, and offered me a truce, forget his past offenses, and she'd let it go. I raised her instead. I could restore his standing, his sect rank, hell, I could even give up King herself. She said stop, but I already had it out, the mind convergence pill, ancient soul-repairing medicine that could fully restore her real body. Her eyes went wide the second the box opened. I'd found the one thing in this world she wanted more than loyalty to Yi Chen, and I set it right in her open palm. Yi Chen exploded. He'd worked it out, called me a damned bastard for trying to buy his master with a single pill. She swore she only played along to get him free, but he wasn't buying it and dared her to prove it by leaking me real information. She sighed, said fine, and handed something over. Yi Chen actually looked relieved. He'd been sure she wouldn't abandon him after all. The system pinged, a rift tore open between Yi Chen and his master. His fortune bled 50 points straight into mine, 400 richer. My elder asked why I hadn't simply killed Yi Chen for the remnant soul. Truth was, I wanted the 8 Baron Demon Halberd, the ancient Baron Demon God's weapon. Waiting in a ruin Yi Chen's luck would have led him to. Now he was just my treasure-seeking rat. I told my people to keep watch on Yi Chen, then shut myself away and opened the system shop. My fate value wasn't enough yet for the top-tier techniques, but I found one heavenly-grade gem, the innate divine chant, a cultivation method that could carry me all the way to the transcendent realm. This is the one, I thought, and let it burn into me. 3 days later, with the Supreme Elder confirmed dead, every rival sect came calling not to mourn, but to carve up Taixuan's spiritual veins for themselves. Zhao Tian of the ancient Zhao family said it outright. Our monopoly on those veins was over. Another elder backed him, calling decades of exclusive control unfair. Then came the one name that actually made the room go quiet, Chu Wuji. Chu Wuji, ruler of the Great Sun Empire, wasn't here to ask politely. He doubted Taixuan had anyone left worth fearing. King Zhi's father admitted he'd burned his last favor with me and wasn't sure I'd help again. Word had spread that Taixuan had ties to the upper realms, but Chu Wuji brushed it off. Those realms had been cut off from this wilderness for far too long to matter now. Chu Wuji bragged that his empire's limitless tower could take down even a sacred emperor realm cultivator, and he proved it, a ward that had stood 1,000 years shattered under one strike. King Zhi begged her father to hold on while she raced off to plead with me directly. Chu Wuji just sneered at the old man's stubbornness. Cut the crap, he said. Since you want to die, I'll grant your wish. While I sat deep in seclusion soaking up the innate divine chant, the limitless tower tore into Taixuan's sky and something answered it, force so vast the elders panicked, wondering if the Supreme Elder had cheated death. He hadn't, that force was mine. From the shadows, Yi Chen's master watched it ripple out and smiled. Everyone she needed was finally in one place. Let the show begin. What I didn't learn until later was that while all this brewed, Yi Chen snuck into the estate to spirit King Zhi away, clamping a hand over her mouth so no one would hear. He begged her to run with him out of what he called this hellish place. Her answer was flat. She was never leaving Taixuan's sacred land. Yi Chen accused me of forcing her hand, and that was the one insult King Zhi couldn't swallow. She told him the truth herself. She'd cut away her own fortune points, traded her future for Taixuan's peace, and no one made her do it. When he called that selfish, she snapped that his ego disgusted her. Then she told him to run. What the system logged was blunt. King Zhi had already turned on him, my fortune climbing 250 points the instant her loyalty flipped. She struck before he could stop her, blade drawn, and left him bleeding in the dirt. I'm sorry, she told him, voice shaking, but I have to cut every tie I have to you. She left Yi Chen bound and broken, promising him they'd meet again, then came straight to report to me. I asked her outright. Next time she'd have to fight him to the death. Could she live with that? She didn't flinch. She'd known that reckoning was coming from the moment she chose my side. With her tie to Yi Chen cut, I didn't need to keep my distance from King Zhi anymore, and a woman carrying that much fortune was worth keeping close. My fortune jumped 60 points, fate score up 380. Turns out I could farm luck off anyone blessed, not just fortunes chosen. Then a servant rushed in, desperate for my help. I already knew. I wasn't sitting idle while Takeshuan burned. So I came out of seclusion to find Takeshuan's gates already surrounded, Zhao Tian and Chu Wuji's men, demanding proof the Supreme Elder still lived, ready to force their way in. Then the ground answered. Power rolled out and silenced them cold. Someone choked out, "He's here." I looked at the barbarians on my doorstep and asked who dared disturb my peace. For one breath the courtyard went dead silent. Nobody at those gates dared push their luck twice. But peace never lasted long around Takeshuan's sacred land. I could already feel the next storm gathering, and this one wasn't going to stop at words. One of them laughed in my face, sneering that Takeshuan's sacred land must have fallen pretty far if this was the best backup I could scrounge up. I told him plainly to take it back. I wasn't someone he wanted to test. He came at me anyway to find out. He didn't like the answer. My strength broke through, and Zhao Tian staring at me went white. A sacred emperor this young out here in the wilderness. Impossible, he choked out. I didn't bother arguing. I told the brat to keep his head down, made it clear Takeshuan's sacred land was under my protection now, and warned that if he was so set on dying he couldn't blame me for being ruthless. His whole crew answered by charging at once. He went all out, screaming that he'd cut me down and swinging with everything he had. I met him blow for blow, energy crashing against energy, until he finally dropped, and just as I thought it was over, something else caught my eye. This fight was far from finished. King screamed my name in fear as the limitless tower blazed to life, its golden light the only thing letting these three even touch me. One of them laughed that plenty of prodigies never lived past adulthood, and being a sacred emperor didn't mean I could take all three at once. Even the sacred lord cursed that tower's power. Chu Wuji, done talking, demanded we just hand over the spiritual veins. Zhao Tian stared up at that golden tower like his whole world had cracked. Impossible, he kept muttering. In a world stacked on power like that, most sects were lucky to produce one true sacred lord in their entire history, and a sacred sovereign was rarer still. Anyone below the quasi-god realm, I made clear, was nothing to me, just ants. The sky itself seemed to tear open in that burst of light, crowds scattering below as the shockwave rolled out. I turned on Chu Wuji and asked, almost bored, whatever happened to his boast about taking down a sacred sovereign easily. Silence answered me, and then something worse than either of us stepped out of it. "Who are you?" someone stammered. "One with an infinite lifespan," came the reply. Chuxian went pale and called him a god come down from the upper realm. Maybe he was. I'd taken worse hits than that blast, and I was still standing. Beside me, King's just smiled, like nothing in the sky could touch either of us. Half a month later, my name was all anyone in the outer towns talked about, how I'd crushed 3 kingdoms' armies in one blow and torn down the great Sun Empire's limitless tower myself. They laughed hardest about the boy who once swore he'd win King's back, then folded the second I looked at him. I let them have their fun. Whoever struck Takeshuan didn't stay to finish the job. One hit sent him fleeing, screaming that we'd pay 100-fold. Back home, the elders wouldn't stop fawning over my strength, and Kings rolled her eyes at how small 1,000 years of living had left their hearts. I offered to torment them a little more, just for her. Then word arrived. A prince of the great Xia Empire wanted to meet me. Something about the old mark left by the mind convergence pill told me it was time to move. The central state was calling, and a bigger stage meant bigger prey. I gave the order to leave in 3 days, then pulled aside my steward, old Ming, who'd left family behind there centuries ago, and promised we'd stop by them on the way. Cost me nothing, bought me everything. 3 days later we reached central heavenly city, the beating heart of the Tianding realm. In some tavern there, I later heard a noble woman was tearing into her own clansmen, a drunk, disgraced young man named Lin Tian, for dragging her family's name through the mud at some rundown academy. He barely lifted his head. "This king," he muttered, "is very upset." Lin Tian didn't even seem to know where he was. Central heavenly city. Someone had to remind him, like he'd fallen out of the sky. His clanswoman gave him an ultimatum: reach the spiritual sea realm by month's end or get thrown out of his academy for good. He just laughed it off. "I'll crush them all," he swore, like it was a joke. Then the sky over him cracked open, lightning tearing across the heavens like the world itself was reacting to him. My system pinged the instant it happened. A new fortune's chosen detected. I smiled. Whatever Lin Tian actually was, luck like that doesn't show up twice. He was mine to find next. Word spread through the Lin family compound that their patriarch had sensed something impossible, the presence of an ancestor who descended to the upper realm thousands of years ago. Names buzzed through the hall. Could ancestor Lin Ming really have returned? If so, they whispered, there was hope for the family yet. None of them knew how close that hope actually stood. Back aboard the ship carrying me toward Zhangzhou, I turned inward and asked my system a blunt question. How much fortune did Yi Chen have left after everything I'd drained from him? The number that came back was 230, a fraction of what he started with, and that wasn't even the worst of what the backlash was about to cost him. The system laid it out plain. The wider the gap between my fortune and a so-called chosen's, the weaker the heavens could protect them. Mine had climbed past 660, and somewhere out there a brand new fortune's chosen had just appeared. Then King sauntered up glowing with good cheer, and I clocked her number 400 and rising. Convenient having me around. As we neared Zhangzhou, King walked me through the lay of the land, 8 great cities, with central heavenly city, the crown jewel, currently hosting the great Xia Empire's Taoist assembly, some minor princes gathering. I couldn't imagine why a low-level affair like that would ever be worth my time. Walking those streets, all anyone could talk about was the Lin family's ancestor supposedly breaking free of a seal thousands of years old. Most called it nonsense. I had other business. Old records pointed me toward remains worth recovering fast. Somewhere in that crowd, someone already hated the sight of me and swore I'd pay for it, though I wouldn't learn who for a while yet. At the Lin Ancestral Hall, I got my answer. The ancestor the whole family had been begging the heavens to return was old Ming, my own steward. He'd been mine the entire time. He waved off his kin, called himself my old servant in front of everyone, and the hall about lost its mind watching it happen. Old Ming had business to handle, so the family head sent his own daughter to show me around instead. Lin Qiuhan, golden-haired and nervous, greeted me like I might vanish if she blinked. I liked the name well enough, and when I clocked her fortune value ticking past 200, I figured Zhangzhou might suit me just fine. I asked Lin Qiuhan to show King and me around the city. She flushed and stammered out a yes, flattered by the attention, with no idea I already had my eye on more than a tour. What I only found out later, someone in that crowd already wanted me dead. A rival soul wearing another man's face, calling himself the god-slaughtering king, felt an old ache stir at the sight of Lin Qiuhan, then spotted her rare 9-yin profound beauty physique. He weighed my fortune against hers and decided I'd live a little longer, for now. Walking the grounds, I caught gossip about the family's black sheep, talentless, low-born, not worth the name. Lin Qiuhan defended him anyway. Her younger brother Lin Tian, she insisted, had actually started training hard, even caught an elder's mistake. Nobody quite believed her. I told her that Lin Tian changing at all proved she'd gotten through to him, that being hard on someone didn't mean she hadn't wanted the best for him. She went quiet, stunned. Even her own brother had never given her that much credit. Lin Qiuhan admitted her brother had been stuck for years, unable to even break into the spiritual sea realm, until suddenly he wasn't. I already knew why. The system had flagged him a new fortune's chosen, and draining a chosen dry before killing them earns a heavenly reward. With Yi Chen tied up elsewhere, I decided to harvest Lin Tian's luck early. That night Lin Qiuhan sent over spirit cakes so I wouldn't go hungry, though she let Kinj carry them in rather than face me herself. Kinj thanked her on my behalf. Lin Qiuhan just smiled, quietly pleased, and slipped away without disturbing my rest. Kinj teased me about Lady Lin falling for me after one meeting, then waved it off, said I was too unreadable to make her jealous, and free to keep Lin Qiuhan close if I wanted. That same night, across the city, Lin Qiuhan caught her little brother, Lin Tian, sneaking home in the dark, and the questions started right there. Lin Qiuhan grabbed him and laid it out. She didn't trust that Gu family guy, said my act was too smooth to be real. Lin Tian snapped back, defending me, called her blind for not seeing it. She shot back that no man of my standing would want anything from her, and told him to look at himself instead. I'd never seen the kid's temper run that hot before. Walking away, Lin Qiuhan couldn't shake it. The brother who once ignored her every order to cultivate was suddenly gone for days, brewing pills he'd never had the patience for, an expert guiding him maybe, or something else. She stood alone in the dark, turning the thought over, and I couldn't have asked for better raw material. The system pinged. Lin Qiuhan's suspicion had paid out, 250 points of destiny straight into my pocket. Everything was running exactly to plan. Lin Tian was close to snapping, and soon enough he'd come at me himself. What I didn't know yet was that somewhere in the woods, another player was already moving. A stranger who'd meant to get close to Lin Qiuhan first, now forced to deal with me instead. Heavenly Demon Outlaw Curse Guide. The stranger called it out, and the night tore open. a spiral of blood and fire dragging skeletal wraiths screaming out of the dark, poison and stolen years, bound into one killing stroke aimed straight for my life. The curse ripped across the sky like a blade of red light and slammed down not on me, but on Lin Tian. The stranger admitted it, too hard to land that curse on me directly, but he'd bound 15 years of his own life into the strike, so even if Lin Tian survived, his mind wouldn't. He named himself the God-slaughtering king, and warned this was the price for touching what belonged to him. That was the first real look I got at the face behind the voice, the God-slaughtering king himself, crowned in moonlight and dead men's bones. Whatever he wanted with Lin Qiuhan, he just made it very clear he was willing to burn Lin Tian to get to me. The heavenly demon outlaw curse tore through the sky where I'd been standing a heartbeat before, and slammed into Lin Tian instead. The blast lit the night blood red, a demon-shaped shockwave of pure curse energy swallowing him whole, while the God-slaughtering king streaked off into the dark, robbed of the kill he wanted. The courtyard erupted in panic. "Is it the Lin ancestor?" someone shouted, staring at the wreckage. I found Lin Tian collapsed and bleeding, the curse having found him instead of me. Walking away alone into the night, I turned the numbers over in my head, a demonic curse that expensive, and it still couldn't touch me. The system pinged before I even had to lift a finger. Lin Tian's lifespan gutted, his fortune points down 150, mine up 750. I hadn't done anything, the boy was doing my work for me. Old Ming dropped to his knees begging forgiveness for failing to protect his young master, and the whole Lin clan followed, bowing for a crime that wasn't theirs. Lin Qiuhan rushed over asking if I was hurt. I told her a curse like that couldn't touch me. An elder said a technique that dark always burns its user on the way out, but none of us knew yet. Back in his quarters that night, Lin Tian stirred, alive, quietly plotting how to disappear rather than face his family's shame. Fled into the dark, the God-slaughtering king screamed back a promise Gu Changed, "I'll get you back for this another day," and vanished. Then, almost as an afterthought, someone caught up to Lin Tian before he could vanish on his own terms. Blood sprayed, he collapsed for real this time, and Lin Qiuhan's scream tore through the courtyard. Lin Tian. The next report came to me plainly. The culprit was Lin Tian, a disgraced kid the clan had already written off. But he was already dead, they said, found cold in a pool of his own blood before anyone could question him. Dead, I asked, and looked past them at Lin Qiuhan's stricken face, already doing the math on what I had just been handed. One more piece had fallen into place, but the God-slaughtering king was still out there, and he'd made himself very clear. He wasn't done with me yet. Lin Tian went down in a pool of blood, and I should have felt satisfied, except the system never pinged me with a death notification. No confirmation meant no kill. Was he really gone, or was he lying there right now, waiting, watching, playing dead until the family stopped watching him too? Turned out the whole Lin family had already turned on him. His fortune value crashed while mine spiked 500 points just off the fallout. Old Ming groveled at my feet, begging forgiveness for his shame of a grandson. I played it gracious, blamed some forgotten upper realm soul-stealing technique, and let the Lin family off the hook. For Old Ming's sake, I said. Really, I just wanted them grateful. So I asked Lin Qiuhan to show me around the city myself. She practically fell over herself agreeing. The system slipped me another 200 points for the ask alone, barely anything, but I couldn't stop wondering if her fortune worked like King's, climbing every time she fell a little harder for me. 3 months passed and Zhangzhou turned into a circus. All 8 great cities came rushing in, chasing rumors that Old Ming had brought back an immortal from the upper realm. The region's biggest gathering, the Taoist assembly itself, got moved to the Lin family's own city, just to get a look at me. The crowds buzzed with theories nobody could confirm. Was I real? Was I some elder's trick? Could a person like that even exist? Doubt didn't slow them down. Elders who'd sat in seclusion for centuries came out of hiding, and the Lin family rolled out a welcome fit for royalty. Someone spotted Lin Qiuhan first, then a visiting saintess from Taixuan's sacred land in turquoise silk. Then somebody saw me, and the whole crowd froze. It's him. I let them bow. Not everyone in that crowd was thrilled to see me, though. I caught at least one face going pale with something closer to dread than awe. Later, on a terrace looking out over the whole city, I told them my cultivation wasn't really about power. It was a war against heaven and earth itself, and I intended to win it. One of the women with me started spiraling with guilt over some failure on her side. I waved it off. Between her loyalty and King's bloodline, I already had everything I needed. Lin Qiuhan begged me to explain what I'd seen in her brother. I told her the truth mostly. Lin Tian's body might have been hijacked by some resurrection technique, no telling if it was really him underneath. What I didn't say was the plan. Once she watched her brother come back with her own eyes, her grief would burn out, his fortune would bleed dry, and there'd be no reason left to keep him breathing. Word had already spread, so I let the whole procession in, lords and elders bowing the second they saw my face. Lin Kyuhan stood at my side through it all, and my mind drifted back to the pastries she'd baked for me herself, sweet and a little clumsy. Whatever this arrangement started as, her devotion was turning out to be genuinely useful. The system flagged something in those pastries, a trace of real alchemy talent. Rather than waste destiny value on myself, I earmarked a beginner alchemy manual to slip her later. How far she'd run with it was on her. Then a new alert hit me cold, a sudden quest to suppress the sworn brother of a fortune's chosen. Lin Tian was already broken, that only left Yi Chen. I turned to Chukshuan, my man on the ground, and asked flat out if Zhangzhu had any word on Yi Chen. Nothing. Then someone pointed out a stranger tearing through the crowd, red-haired and furious, claiming Yi Chen as his sworn brother. My mood soured instantly. If the system wanted him suppressed, I was happy to oblige. The stranger, Jin Yang, wasn't asking politely. He grabbed the crowd one by one, promising to treat silence as a confession, and when nobody answered fast enough, he cut loose, a blast of raw force that dropped grown cultivators where they stood. People whispered his aura rivaled a sacred lord's. All he wanted was one answer: where was his sworn brother, Yi Chen? One battered bystander begged forgiveness. He truly didn't know where Yi Chen was. Someone tried to talk Jin Yang down, insisting he'd been deceived, but Jin Yang wasn't having it. He knew his sworn brother's character better than anyone. Then he rounded on me, demanding to know if I had some grudge against Yi Chen. I just smiled. He should have felt honored I even let him ask. That question cost him. I answered with a strike that folded him in half and sent him crashing through the crowd before he'd even finished his sentence. Nobody there had the right to question me twice. Once he was down, I turned to old Ming, my steward, and gave one order: make sure not a whisper of this reached anyone by morning. The Jinyang business closed clean, the system pinged. Quest complete, fate value up another 700. What really shook Kinge, my betrothed, was something colder, watching me end a whole sacred land, Jialu, with one throwaway sentence. She looked at me like a stranger. In the ruins, survivors just stood there asking who they'd possibly offended. I only learned this later. Yi Chen found Jinyang and broke. I must kill Gu Chang, he swore, ready to come for me right then. His master, the crimson-haired guardian hiding to protect him, stepped in and stopped him cold. I'd made an enemy who wouldn't let go. Elsewhere, in a quieter corner of Zhangzhou, I was busy with something far gentler. Lin Kyuhan, my Lin family guide, still wasn't used to seeing gentleness on my face, so I gave her a beginner alchemy manual, an apology, I told her, since I don't waste real talent. She lit up. I leaned in, teased her about the moon, watched her blush. And that's when King showed up, and I got a look that could have cut glass. 3 days later, the Lin family came asking favors, reputation, standing, a good word for me with the sacred land. My pleasure, I told them, and meant it in my own way. Kyuhan couldn't make sense of it, though I had been strangely forgiving of Lin Tian, over a crime nobody had proven, like something else was pulling his strings. And Lin Tian himself was still exactly where I'd put him, behind bars. A scream tore out of the cell. A guard froze. He came back from the dead and stammered the report to Kyuhan, her brother. I sent everyone else out before they could make a scene. Whatever wore Lin Tian's face in there was already muttering about settling blood scores with me. Then right on cue, it looked up at Kyuhan with lost eyes. Sister, why am I here? Kid, I said, close enough that only he could hear. Your acting is a little over the top. The family standing at the bars just muttered about who I even was. They still barely knew me. Then Kyuhan snapped. Enough, you're putting up an act even now, she screamed at him. He just blinked back at her, all wounded confusion. Sister, what are you talking about? I don't understand. I'm your brother, Lin Tian, you have to believe me, he begged. So Kyuhan tested him, dragged up an old humiliation only the real Lin Tian would remember. He cut her off. Shut up, wrong answer. Don't call me your sister, she said, ice cold. Who are you? Where's Lin Tian? That's when his face twisted, snarling about a fox that shouldn't have acted now. Kyuhan's scream said everything. Lin Tian. I found the imposter already unraveling in his cell, hissing at Lin Kyuhan that she'd never been the one hurting him. She just stood there, guilt written all over her, insisting the whole mess was her fault. Whatever was wearing her brother's face, it wasn't finished screaming yet. The system pinged. The current fortune's chosen had gone dark. The kill drop pool activated. I stepped in and told Lin Kyuhan to walk away. She couldn't do what needed doing, but I could. Then I turned on the thing wearing her brother's face and let it know I'd seen through it from the start. He demanded why I was even asking if he'd been trying to kill me. Deflection, not denial. I didn't need more than that. I let a flicker of demonic aura loose, grabbed his face, told him a dead man doesn't need answers, and finished it. Turned out he was the remnant soul of a psychic cultivator calling himself the heaven-killing divine king, and killing him fed my own spirit harder than I expected. The kill paid out. The system flagged a first kill chest, mine for the taking. I didn't waste time. I reached out and cracked it open. The payout was big 5 fortune-plundering talismans, rare enough that even I hadn't seen one before. Each one let me strip a fortune's chosen of their points outright, no matter the gap between us. A bonus chest popped on top of that. The system was feeling generous. Then the real prize, a supreme heart plus a standing perk. As the faded villain, the fortune point gap would never again stop me from harvesting a fortune's chosen. Tempting to just kill on sight from now on, except that meant fewer fate points later. Noted, weigh it case by case. As for the heart, tens of thousands of years of a supreme realm cultivator's power, I fused it straight into myself. The system pinged again, banking more points from the deity devouring demonic art. Grinding my way up the sacred emperor realm the honest way would cost centuries I didn't have, so I never stopped farming fortune, not for a second. There was also someone I'd been keeping alive out of use. That use was almost up. Time to start planning for the realm above. Then Lin Qiuhan called out to me. I told Lin Qiuhan to bury her brother properly. His body hadn't been possessed long, so his soul might not be gone for good, and there was still a chance he could reincarnate. She thanked me. 3 days later, in Changyu Ancient City, ahead of Zhangzhu's Taoist assembly, whispers spread about how Jialu's sacred land had been wiped out on my say-so, and no one could name who done it. Meanwhile, on Yichen's side of the world, a young woman pressed her guardian, Aunt Yu, for word of him, met only with silence. She hadn't felt a flicker of his power since he'd gone dark, and it was tearing her up. Around them, strangers scoffed that he was just some cult remnant who wouldn't stay hidden long. None of them knew he still had allies out there. Aunt Yu promised the girl she wouldn't let anyone touch her, a small mercy in someone else's story. Back on my end, things were moving quietly and exactly to plan. Lin Qiuhan had mastered pill intent in just days, talent even her family elder called extraordinary, and she credited it all to the alchemy manual I'd given her. She had no idea how deliberate that gift really was. Then lightning cracked over the Lin family as the ancient sacred mountain came calling, a monstrous demon and his escort strolling in like conquerors. Little Lin family were not here for pleasantries, he laughed. Lin Qiuhan held her ground and demanded to know what they wanted. Their answer, send for the young master, or learn what happens to a family that offends them. I didn't wait for an invitation. A bolt tore down from the sky like a finger of judgment and blew straight through their demon before he'd even finished posturing. Poison flared, bodies scattered, and the army they brought folded in seconds flat. To me, anyone below the quasi-god realm was just an ant, and I'd just proven it again. The blast threw the survivors clean out of the estate. Lin Qiuhan stared at me like she'd never really seen me before. Why, young master? Her father recovered fast, waved off the shock in front of the others, and when a stranger showed up at the gate moments later, he didn't hesitate. Let them in, he said. Whatever came next, I was ready. Old Ming led me through the gates of the Lin family estate, and the guards there went stiff before I'd even said a word. They were staring at the aura rolling off me, whispering that I carried the weight of a sacred sovereign, wondering where a power like mine had come from. I just told them to let me in. Word spread fast that I wasn't hostile toward the woman standing near Lin Qiuhan, and that alone unsettled the elders watching from the shadows. One robed figure kept turning the same question over in his head. What could possibly make a woman like that stop hating me? Lin Qiuhan walked me out to meet the crowd gathered just to see me, and Yichen's cousin didn't hide her disdain, needling me about the disgrace he'd suffered. I felt my fortune points tick up 800 off that one insult. Auntie Zai rushed in, begging me to forgive the girl's rudeness. That was the moment Liulai snapped. She rounded on Auntie Zai for groveling to me at all, furious that anyone would bow to the man who'd humiliated Yichen. Lin Qiuhan tried to talk her down, insisting it was all a misunderstanding that didn't need to turn into a fight among their own. Auntie Zai kept pushing, spelling out just how dangerous my bloodline really was, and begging Liulai to apologize before I took offense. Liulai wasn't buying it. She threw the plea right back in Auntie Zai's face, accusing her of a courage she'd never actually shown me herself. Liulai finally said it out loud, blade drawn, flames roaring behind her. I was the one who'd driven Yichen out in disgrace, and she'd never forgive that. Watching her plant herself in front of me anyway, I had to admit it, that kind of loyalty was rare. So I asked her plainly what she'd really come here to do, gave her 3 breaths to answer before I called her bloodline meaningless. She lunged at me instead. The others dropped to their knees begging for mercy, but she stayed silent. So I turned to old Ming and gave the order, every 10 breaths without an answer, kill someone. Anyone who resisted, kill them too. They dropped to their knees, screaming that I held their whole family's fate in my hand. Pathetic, all of it. Old Ming looked to me for the word, and I gave it without blinking. 10 breaths, then kill them. I wanted to see exactly how much this girl believed in Yi Chen. The count ran out and the courtyard turned red. Liulai screamed, frozen as my order was carried out. Then her own people turned on her, sobbing, blaming her, begging her to just bow to me and end it. One word from her, they said, could still save them all. That broke her enough, she said, dropping to apologize, taking the blame to spare the rest. I let it go easy, told her I already had no grudge against her family. The others thanked me like I'd done them a favor. Then a new voice cut in, Yi Chen's sister, demanding answers for her brother. I asked if she wanted me to do something about her brother too. Crushing another ant wouldn't cost me much. She flinched, but I could see the math behind her eyes. If I could kill Yi Chen this easily, no one who crossed me was safe. She hadn't come here to grovel. She insisted her brother wasn't the kind of man to steal another's bride, that if I truly wanted him dead, hoping wouldn't save him. Fair point, but this whole scene was never about Yi Chen. Every eye on me now, every whisper of suspicion, that was exactly what my system was hungry for. I told the courtyard I was done and let everyone go. Old Ming murmured that fate had brought 2 outsiders from the upper realm together here, that maybe I should get to know her better. I didn't even look up. No need, I said. I have no interest in a brat like her. That word landed like a slap. She spun around mid-step, aura flaring, demanding I say it to her face. Liulai grabbed her arm, trying to hold her back. I just smiled. Good, let her be furious. An enemy who underestimates me is worth more to me than 100 grateful allies. With Yi Chen gone, I already had my next move ready, claim the inheritance, plant myself in the central region, and use a stolen VIP token to steer his whole path into my hands. Don't disappoint me, Yi Chen. What I didn't know yet, a crimson-haired stranger was circling the same prize, telling her companion nothing in this world was worth her attention, except this. That companion pressed her. Was this finally her chance at revenge? She hesitated. What if Yi Chen found another road in? Told to wait until she reached the quasi-god realm, she brushed the warning off anyway. Then the mountain answered for her. The hidden Tianyuan realm tore open in a pillar of light, and the whole world felt it crack. The realm had opened, and everyone who got close felt the same crushing weight, their own cultivation getting suppressed. Word spread fast. A supreme cultivator had died in there, and whatever inheritance he'd left behind was still waiting. I watched the crowds pour in from every direction, sects, strangers, rivals, all chasing the same prize I already had a plan for. Yi Chen showed up at the gate and people scrambled to clear his path. Turns out he still had people who cared about him, reuniting with an old friend, Lissy, right there in the crowd. I wasn't there to hear it, but Liulai showed up too, and her own maid spent the whole walk insisting I was the better match for her. Liulai about lost it. What I didn't know yet was that Liulai had already grown wary of me, confiding to her maid that she couldn't tell if I was courting her or setting a trap. While she stewed on it, I pushed my own people through the ruins, warning my steward the hidden realm wouldn't stay open forever, and that I'd claim the inheritance myself if I had to. The truth was simpler than she knew. I'd left a hidden mark on a pill I'd once given away, and it hadn't faded, meaning no matter how fast Yi Chen ran, I could track him straight to the realm's edge. I almost laughed. Work hard, Yi Chen. You were my personal treasure hunter now, whether you liked it or not. Inside the ruins, the path's guardian beast lay broken on the ground. My people had cleared it before I'd even caught up. One of them marveled that I'd already reached the advanced transcendent realm. I waved it off, though how smoothly it had all gone left me uneasy. The map was clear enough. A palace deep in the ruined city held the Supreme Master's inheritance. Not far off, Liulai's group felt the demonic energy thickening around them and braced for trouble. They weren't wrong. A winged horror tore opened the sky above the gate and dropped screaming into the courtyard. A monster, they called it, and for once nobody was exaggerating. I answered it with one flick of my finger. That was only the opening act. A whole tide of monsters poured out of the ruins after it, and Yi Chen told his people to hold the line while he pushed ahead for the inheritance himself. Liulai didn't hesitate. She blazed pink light through the horde, cutting monsters down to buy him the time he needed. I strolled into the middle of it and Liulai rounded on me. How had I beaten them here? Had I hurt Yi Chen to do it? I owed her brother my thanks, I said. His own trail led me straight in. She called me spoiled, handed everything by the Changsheng family. Then the fighting swallowed the rest, and I told my steward old Ming to hold the ground. I could see it, the inheritance sat right past those stairs, and I wasn't stopping for anything. Behind me I could still hear Yi Chen screaming for Liu to hold on, but that fight wasn't mine anymore. The deeper I went, the thicker the demonic energy got, worse than I'd planned for. Good thing I'd already swallowed medicine to counter it. I pushed the door open anyway. Inside, I found exactly what 200 years of secrecy had been hiding: the Supreme Elder's corpse, still seated on its throne, still radiating enough menace to make the air ache. I didn't waste time being impressed. I asked straight out where the inheritance was. The answer came back simple. It was fused into the corpse itself. That's when I realized I wasn't alone in here. Someone was already waiting, calm, unbothered, like he'd been there since before I ever arrived. Turned out he'd used my own path in to slip through unnoticed. And when he called out a name, Elder Yanjai, my stomach dropped. My own master had been hiding in here the whole time. And then she stepped out, the woman I'd called master for years, the one who'd guarded my back and my secrets without ever asking for anything in return. Now she stood across from me looking like I'd broken something in her, reminding me exactly how much she'd sacrificed to keep faith in me when I gave her every reason not to. She didn't raise her voice, which somehow made it worse. She just asked whether Yi Chen now believed she was the one who'd sold out his location because of what she'd said. And then, quietly, she told me that if that's what he believed, the blame was hers alone to carry. I denied it, but nobody in that hall was buying it. They said it flat out. I'd worked her feelings for years just to get that door open, and the second I had the inheritance and people backing me, I was ready to toss her aside. Someone begged her to stop, warned me to fall in line, and before I could answer, I was already flying through the air. Elder Yanjai tried to buy Liu's loyalty with sweet words and a soul-nurturing jade. Yi Chen wasn't having it. He screamed that he'd kill me and let his fury rip loose right there. I just told the old elder to step aside and hand the jade and the seat to me. Then my man warned me Yi Chen held the key to every trap in this realm. I only sighed, because now so did I. So I let it show. Behind me a golden titan of buried power rose off the throne itself, answering my call like it had always been mine. Yi Chen threw everything into one burning fist and screamed for me to go to hell. I stood in the middle of his own trap wrapped in violet flame and told him the truth. His arrays meant nothing to me anymore. Somewhere in the chaos his weapons started resonating with all that power, and someone demanded to know why. I wasn't in the mood to explain myself to a dying man. Gold and violet tore through the corridor until I stood over him and said it plain. He'd been running on borrowed time for a while now, and today I was ending it. All he could manage back was a broken question. Why wasn't the realm's suppression working on me at all? He begged that he couldn't die there, and I only loomed closer. Then Liu burst in screaming for me to stop, demanding to know what I'd done to Brother Chen. I asked for her conditions, and when Yi Chen ordered her never to beg for me, I crushed him down to shut him up. Then I named my real price to her, open her mind to me, wear my slave seal, and I'd let him live. Liu didn't flinch. She called my price ambitious, but she still wanted proof I'd hold to it, so she demanded I swear the same oath back. If I broke my word and let Yi Chen die, demons would devour my heart and hell would claim me. I agreed instantly, too instantly if she'd been paying attention. I gave her one more out, told her it wasn't too late to change her mind. She wasn't interested in mercy for herself. Cut the crap, she snapped. Do it now if you want to, so I did. Then let me begin, I said, and reached for her mind. The mark went in through a demon-carved vessel I'd kept hidden away, a thread of crimson power sinking straight into her. She turned to Yi Chen and spoke his name like nothing had happened, but something in her voice was wrong, hollow, and I watched him catch it before she did. Yi Chen rounded on me, demanding to know what I'd done. Nothing you need worry about, I told him. Then I turned to Liu and asked her one simple question. What should she call me? Her mouth answered before her mind caught up. Master, she said, and I watched her hear herself say it. She caught herself and panicked, wondering if some slave mark had done this to her. Worse than that, I told her, the demonizing flask, untraceable to ordinary cultivators. Forget everything that happened here, I said, and in time become my devoted demonic servant, loyal to no one else. Yi Chen exploded, calling me despicable to my face. He reminded me I'd sworn an oath. I reminded him what it actually said, that breaking it would feed me to demons and drop me into hell. I already was a demon. Hell was already my address, so I closed my fist around him and it cost me nothing at all. Save me, Liu, he begged with his last breath. She couldn't. Leeli watched him die and felt nothing, not grief, not even hatred for me, and that terrified her more than his death did. The system didn't care about her pain. It flagged Chen as fortune's chosen, killed, and the payout poured in, a hidden chest, a 5 times multiplier, and a final haul of 1,000 fortune points and 5,000 fate points. The instant I killed Lin Tian, the system pinged, a heavenly chest cracked open. Inside sat something called void marrow. Did it trace back to Chen's bloodline, some mark of the fortune's chosen? I didn't wait to find out. I fused it into myself right there, and felt its offense and defense settle into me like they'd always belonged. My stats ticked upward, fate points past 5,000, the halberd almost within reach. Then Leeli's voice cracked through the leash I'd put on her, calling my name instead of my title, some flicker of the real her breaking loose. I turned on her cold. What did you just call me? She caught herself. Master. Good girl. I told her to stay put and walked on alone. Now came the real business. I left the throne room behind and walked deeper into that ruined hall alone. What waited for me there was a nightmare, a skeletal husk sealed in ancient armor, chained to a blade dripping with bloody iron links, still standing guard after who knows how many centuries. One glance told me everything. A blade that could shear through a supreme's body had to be supreme grade itself, and I already wanted it for my own. Then the husk stirred, and I felt it, a flicker of consciousness still clinging inside that armor. So this was how the legacy had survived all along, guarded even from beyond death. The story that should have played out, Chen stood here, earned this legacy, tamed the halberd's demonic seal himself. Instead, I'd stolen his fate and put him in the ground. Break that seal wrong and this remnant spirit wouldn't forgive me. So when its golden light rose and called me forward to inherit, I bowed my head. Yes, Senior. I already had an escape talisman ready, just in case. The spirit wasn't fooled for long. It read the malice in me, refused outright, and hammered me with fire. Even mid-blast I noticed, Chen himself had never fully mastered this power before he died, so I pushed back. If I were your precious fortune's chosen, would you still call me evil? That brat was selfish and jealous to his last breath. Give me the legacy, I'll spend it punishing evil instead. It didn't buy a word of it. I've cultivated for thousands of years. You think I can't read your heart? Fire came down like judgment. I dropped the act. I never cared about your legacy, only the halberd chained beneath it. Then die obediently like a corpse should, it roared, unleashing everything it had. I just laughed, for quasi-God's supposed fury that barely even stung. The remnant spirit ripped past its own bindings to come at me, proud of it too, gloating that even trapped as the guardian of this dead hall, it could still break the walls holding it in. But breaking a wall isn't the same as breaking me. The strike landed, and I was still standing. I actually had to check what saved me, a defense treasure maybe. It sneered that the 8-baron demon halberd deserved better than gathering dust in a tomb. Such a fine blade, never once blooded, what a waste to me apparently. Then it turned serious, unleashed that halberd and it would swallow everything alive, friend or foe. Was I really siding with evil? I just smiled. Too late for that question. I already was the demon. All demons should die, it screamed, and threw a fireball big enough to swallow the hall. I didn't even flinch. Funny thing to hear from something so righteous, so why line its own burial chamber with killing arrays, luring in hopefuls just to cut them down? That's not virtue, that's just survival of the fittest. It shrieked that only the strongest deserved its legacy, and came at me again. So pull the halberd and nothing happens to me. Then it's not a curse, it's a gift. Besides, I told it, the one you handpicked to wield this thing is already dead. I killed Chen myself. Higher risk, better reward, wasn't that its own rule? The spirit lost it, screaming how despicable I was, and answered with a beam of fire that tore down the hall at me. The fire hit and the whole hall lit up gold, but when the smoke cleared I was still on my feet, untouched. The power of the void, it whispered, stunned. I just walked past it toward the blade itself, chained and waiting in the dark, the 8-baron demon halberd, 200 years buried down here. Well, I told it, today you're finally seeing the sun. Then the chains just snapped. Whatever had kept that halberd sealed for 2 centuries gave out all at once, and a wave of raw demonic pressure blew outward through the ruins. People who'd been creeping around outside didn't even get a warning, just screaming, running, calamity crashing down on anyone too slow to get clear. I'd wanted a weapon. I think I'd just woken up something closer to a disaster. The halberd came alive in my hand and the sky curdled purple around me. Its guardian spirit screamed that I was too ignorant to carry a weapon like that out of its tomb, as if refusal would still matter. I just smiled. Too late, I told it, and let the blade answer for me. It begged, and I almost admired the nerve. A supreme-grade remnant soul like that was too rare to just let bleed away into nothing, so instead of finishing it, I sealed it, screaming, into a vessel of my own. I'd carry it with me now, I told it, and let it watch exactly what I really was. What I didn't see happen, I only pieced it together later, was Leoli, sealed inside the jade prison I'd bound her with, waiting in the dark for word of the outside world. I'd locked her sight away on purpose, careful as always. Then, without me touching a thing, the seal just let go. What she saw in that instant was the truth I'd buried, that I was the one who'd killed Chen. She grieved quietly, then chose me anyway. The past was the past, she decided. Back home, I waved off my servant's guilt over a shattered shrine idol. I had 2 more years before what really mattered came back. Then someone furious and bleeding came looking for answers. Whatever rage that stranger was carrying, it didn't even need to touch anyone. A young man just dropped dead from the weight of it. Leoli barely blinked. "I'm fine, Auntie Zhu, let's leave," she said, calm as still water now that the flask had rewritten her. But the story that mattered next wasn't happening near me at all. It was unfolding an entire realm above. Half a realm above the one I ruled, someone I'd never even met was being crowned. Imperial brother stepped down, and a woman named Yu Mengxing took the throne of the celestial Wushuang dynasty, declaring every soul under heaven her subject. But underneath the ceremony, what she was really thinking about was someone she called her once beloved fiancé, me. She hadn't even said my name out loud yet, not really, when I felt something shift, way up in the heavens, like a door creaking open somewhere I couldn't see. Whatever was waiting for me up there, I had a feeling it was already closer than I wanted to admit. What I didn't know yet was that somewhere above the heavens, someone I'd once destroyed was awake again. Yu Mengxing, the woman I'd manipulated, blamed, and executed with my own hands in another life, had been reborn, and she wasn't coming back for forgiveness. She swore she'd expose me, ruin me, and make me pay in a fate worse than death. We would meet again soon. Back in the upper realm, I returned from the lower world like a conquering son, my retainers in tow, my family's banners raised, the whole journey home a parade of awe. Word had already spread. The Changsheng young master was back, and no house in the realm could match my name. My father, Gu Linshan, head of the Changsheng family, wanted to know everything. The other clans had been watching my every move in the lower realm, but all they'd seen was a hero who sealed away the fallen demon lord's weapon. Cultivators were already carving my statue in gratitude. Then father asked to see the halberd himself. He turned the 8-baron demon halberd over, impressed, then told me to bury what it really was. Then came the real reason for the summons. My mother wanted to see me, and my fiancé, Yu Mengxing, was still waiting on a marriage neither of us wanted. I felt nothing for her, but the fated villain marrying fortune's chosen herself. What was fate setting up now? Word I'd only pieced together much later concerned a different family entirely, elders gossiping about a girl whose own brother had stolen her cultivation physique and left her for dead. Exiled for years, she'd somehow survived, recovered her gift, and was now showing terrifying talent. Under the cherry blossoms, she told her mentor, Tao Yao, it was time to go. Her family had been exiled by her own uncle for 60 years, and her brother, the one she'd once been closest to, had stripped her of her Taoist physique and abandoned her without a second thought. She wasn't chasing glory. She wanted her family's name restored, and she wanted her brother to pay. I must have my revenge, she swore. She thanked Tao Yao for pulling her back from certain death, and thanked the 3 masters who'd clothed and trained her when she had nothing. Then she said her goodbyes, took to the sky, and made herself a promise. Once her revenge was done, she'd come home. Her masters watched her go, half proud, half heartbroken after 10 years of raising her. Then, out on the edge of the upper realm, she touched down in a stranger's prefecture and didn't waste a breath on pleasantries. Where, she demanded, was the city lord. I dropped out of the sky onto the main street of King's ancient city, and the whole crowd went dead silent. I'm Gu Changed, my name alone could freeze a city by then. But this place was different. Every last descendant of my own Gu family lived here. So why did coming home feel like the start of a fight? I'd always wondered what my status window really meant. Fortune value at 2,000, already ahead of every fortune's chosen alive, and the system swore 0 wouldn't cost me a thing, so I cashed it straight into fate points. A pillar of sword light tore into the sky. I'd just broken into the sacred ancestor realm in front of the whole city. With fortune like that in my pocket, why stop at one sword technique? I opened the system shop and traded 5,000 fate points for the infinite immortal wisdom, a technique built to perfect a soul's primordial spirit. Light cracked from my skull like a second sun. Word reached me later that even in the upper realm, people whispered nobody there carried an aura that pure. Called the Gu family elders up to the mountain peak myself and told them straight I wasn't waiting for their process. I was done pretending age or tradition decided who led this family. So I sat above every elder in that courtyard and announced it plain. I'd already decided who the next patriarch would be. Me. If any junior disagreed, they could prove it by beating me myself. That's when fourth uncle's son Gu Cheng Xiao stepped up laughing, bragging that I only envied him for having a great father. I told him that excuse just proved he was a good-for-nothing crawling beneath me. He went red, and I made it simple for the rest of them. Fight me and prove your worth, or stay 3 miles clear from now on. That seat isn't for trash. I looked at the elders whispering behind their sleeves and decided to cut through the noise myself. Why don't you all fight me together? I said, and even offered to seal my own cultivation down to the sacred ancestor realm just to keep it fair. One of them went red in the face. You've gone too far, he snarled. The strike that came at me carried more weight than it should have, a raw pulse of power somebody had clearly been hoarding for exactly this moment. My eyes narrowed. Fine, I thought, let's see how far that borrowed strength actually gets you. He struck first. I didn't so much as flinch. From the crowd, I could hear the whispers turning uglier. This guy is way too arrogant, someone muttered. Another wondered aloud if the rumors were true after all, that I'd been born with a demon's heart. Maybe they weren't wrong. One of the juniors broke ranks and lunged straight for me. All of you should just fight me together, I told them flatly. Stop wasting my time. That was all the invitation they needed. Voices rose as one, vowing to punish the arrogant heir, family head or not. A storm of crimson energy came screaming at me from every side. I put it down with a flick of one finger. They kept coming after that, blades flashing, bodies crashing past me, and none of it landed. I barely had to move. Just as the dust settled, a sharper voice cut through the noise. Gu Chang, don't even think of attacking. 1,000 blades answered her call, rising into the sky as one, the 1,000 swords technique. 1,000 swords poured down on me at once, and I let them come. One flick of my hand turned the whole storm aside, blades scattering like rain off a roof. The crowd froze, mouths open. Then the real answer arrived, a burst of crimson power that put every last one of them down. They thought numbers meant something. I let my counterstrike answer instead, lightning tearing through their formation before they'd even landed a hit. Then I called on the Gu family's own heaven's imprint, and every soul who'd raised a blade against me suddenly couldn't move a muscle. Their own bloodline's power turned back on them. I clenched my fist, then let it go. My father watched my kin sprawled across the stones and just sighed. Chang has improved a lot. I'd shown mercy, same as I'd promised the elders. Now I only wanted to know if anyone still had something to say. Back among my own family, the fight wasn't about strength anymore. It was about blood. Word had spread that I meant to pardon my exiled 13th uncle's lineage, and some elders panicked. I stood before them and admitted it plainly. Whatever I'd done wrong as a reckless boy, I'd own it now, no excuses. So it was decided. The whole family bowed and hailed me their future patriarch, and I accepted it like it was nothing. Later, alone with my father, Gu Linshan, he asked if I'd really thought through pardoning that lineage. I told him the truth, partly for the family's stability, partly to bury my own guilt. Then he asked the real question, whether the demonic nature that once ruled my heart was finally gone. I told him it was, that the same darkness which used to control me now just sharpens my spirit, nothing more. He said I'd suffered enough over the years, and he believed every word. I'd just told my father my demonic heart was tamed, but alone, staring down those old stone pillars, I wasn't so sure I believed it myself. How many sins had this body carried before I ever stepped into it? I asked the system straight out. Would that darkness ever come back? Nothing. Silence wasn't exactly the answer I wanted. Patriarch business could wait. I owed Yan Jai a debt first, the guardian I'd always called master. I summoned her and told her the truth. Before I asked anything of her, I'd give her real body back. She could hardly believe it after all this time as nothing but a lingering spirit, and asked me why I'd even bother. Honestly, I wasn't fully sure myself. I poured everything I had into it, flowers blooming into raw material, spirit energy folding layer over layer around her. One word, and I forced it all to hold, congeal. It wasn't gentle magic. It was brute force alchemy, bending broken pieces of a body back into something whole again. Her heart started beating again on its own first. The poison burned out, the flesh knit back together, and then she was just standing there real, staring down at her own feet like she'd forgotten what having feet even felt like. My body, she whispered. I looked her over and figured the results weren't half bad. I sent her out to the abandoned land of the immortals, an old ruin nobody had fully explored. Just look around, report back if anything's off, I told her. I handed her an escape talisman too, in case she ran into trouble she couldn't handle. She swore she'd finish the job, whatever it took. What I couldn't handle myself, I let my reputation handle for me. I showed up at the Supreme Amethyst Pill sect with a girl I'd plucked out of the lower realm, raw alchemy talent, the kind sects go to war over. My own people were already counting the payoff. Befriend a sect like this, and you win before the competition even starts. An old elder named Chuhuo came out to greet us, practically falling over himself with gratitude. Word had already spread that I'd handed them a prodigy. He offered her a spot on the spot, no need to compete, just pick her master. Me, I just stood there thinking these old sect elders were better at flattery than they'd ever be at refining pills. The elders practically fought over her, one promising a grandmaster in 20 years, another swearing he could shave it down to 10. I didn't care about the number, only that the favor came back to me. By the end, the sect leader himself came out to thank me personally. That's the kind of debt I'd built my whole reputation on. I sealed the deal properly this time, handed Lin Qiuhan straight to the Supreme Amethyst Pill sect's own leader, along with a token that could summon the whole sect on my name alone. Talent like hers deserved real backing. Then, on the road up to the upper realm, I noticed my companion had gone quiet, too quiet for someone who'd been begging to make this trip. Mingkong asked if I was thinking of leaving her behind. I wasn't. If I'd wanted out, I'd have done it long before we ever left the lower realm. She went quiet, then finally said what she'd clearly been carrying for a while. She wasn't like anyone else. There was more to her than even I knew. Another mind sharing space in her body. Two souls, she said, tangled together in one body, hers and a second, with memories of a past life fading like fog. It clicked instantly. That was why her fortune value had been climbing right alongside mine. Her original spirit, I'd learned, had been shattered in the upper realm long ago, forcing her to be reborn below. She was never as simple as she looked. She told me she kept dreaming of an ancient battlefield, worshipped like something inhuman, feared and merciless. I told her it was fine. Two souls in one body meant twice the wisdom, maybe a shot at a whole new realm of power. As for her secret soul's origin, I figured my own mother, waiting at the celestial Yeahu temple, might actually know. Guess I owed her a visit. Back in the upper realm, I'd already burned through every demon's bottle I owned, refining the power I'd pulled from the 8 Baron demon halberd. Worth it, but I'd need more stock for what was coming. Business mostly settled, my mind kept drifting to one loose thread. I still hadn't heard a word from Mingkong, my own fiancé. Then a servant came running. The emperor and his 4th princess had arrived, and my father wanted me in the main hall. The visiting emperor and my father greeted each other like old friends, brother Yu, brother Gu, while his daughter hung back, praising Mingkong's bearing like she already carried the weight of a throne. Then the princess said something strange, almost to herself. In a previous life, her own father had been cold to her, but an uncle from my family had raised her like his own, until guilt and an incurable illness tore that family apart. I found Mingkong dressed for the occasion, and for a second neither of us said anything. My father cut through it. He had matters to discuss with the emperor, so why didn't I take her for a walk instead? She agreed without much fuss. Behind us, the old men just smiled at how fast the two of us had grown up. She caught me studying her and asked if something was on my mind. Somewhere behind the scenes, the system quietly logged another 8,000 points off the moment. I doubted she'd ever notice. Out loud, I joked I'd almost thought she'd come to ask for a divorce. She shot back that I didn't need to hide it, that I'd always found her annoying anyway, and I couldn't tell if she believed her own joke or mine. Earning her trust while I let my guard down had done exactly what I wanted, but Mingkong noticed I'd grown gentler toward her these past few months, and it worried her. I probed carefully. Did she, like me, carry memories of a life already lived? She swore she'd never lie to me. Still, the way she flinched at future wife told me there was more she wasn't saying. Then the system spoke up, quiet and clinical. Quest 1, subdue the fortunes chosen. Quest 2, kill her, both worth 5,000 fortune points and 25,000 fate points. Before I chose, it showed me why she'd changed. A past life ending in betrayal, killed by someone she'd loved. Killing her outright felt like a waste, so I chose a different game. Husband and wife played straight through a toast. At the feast, her uncle accused me of mistreating her, and Mingkong covered for me instantly, calling it a misunderstanding, though her voice cracked and her eyes welled up. Real concern or performance, either way, I'd already slipped something into the wine. One by one, her brothers grew dizzy and excused themselves, leaving just the two of us at the table, exactly as planned. Alone with me, Mingkong stopped pretending things were fine. She wanted to know why I'd gone cold when our marriage was already sealed, and wondered aloud whether I was testing her, trying to drag the truth out of her. I told her plainly, stop right there or I'd have to be rude about it. Her answer was a blade aimed straight at me. She struck laced with poison, everything she had behind it, but I caught her wrist cold and named it, pinnacle of the conferred Lord realm, far past anything she'd shown me. Cornered, Mingkong dropped the act, the devotion, the tears, all a performance. Her strength was all that mattered now. When I refused to let the lie stand, she screamed, "You bastard," and came at me again. She'd just shown me her real strength, conferred Lord realm, and dropped the loving mask for good. Before her blade could fall again, I caught her wrist, pulled her close, and murmured against her ear, "What else was I supposed to do when the night ran this long, my dear wife?" Her fury flickered into something else entirely. I let her stay that night, and I let the system take notes. Her favorability toward me climbed, her fortune value rising on love alone. 2 lifetimes of memory couldn't stop her from hunting for reasons in her own heart. While she searched, I'd already moved on, back to the sealed door guarding the immortal concubine palace. Mingkong flew on calm on the outside, while her attendant Hanwen praised how gentle I supposedly was. Inside, she was still counting my sins, still swearing she'd make me answer for every scrap of pain I'd caused her. Meanwhile, someone who'd glimpsed a secret I'd already uncovered panicked and swore to report it straight to her own master. What I only heard about later was the storm brewing at Peach Blossom Village, some ancient clan auctioning off a heaven-defying inheritance, and the whole region turning up hungry for it. In the middle of that crowd stood a stranger, beauty rare enough to stop traffic, cornered by a preening young master named Jin Yu who wouldn't take no for an answer. She'd had enough of his threats. The water tore loose and she ripped a full spiritual dragon out of thin air to answer for her. That's when I showed up, and the second I saw her face, every plan in my head stalled out. I knew her. It had been a long, long time. She caught herself before an old name slipped out, just called me Brother Gu instead. I told her she'd grown, gotten even more beautiful, and meant it. Then Jin Yu had the nerve to open his mouth while I was catching up with my little sister. One hit. He went down hard, and nobody's disciples said another word. She wasn't happy to see me, not really. If I'd actually cared, she said, I wouldn't have done what I did back then. I let her think whatever she wanted about her whereabouts being in my hands. The truth was the system had already clocked her near 10,000 fortune points, more than Mingkong had ever banked. Whatever old wound this was, she'd come back dangerous. Jin Yu screamed that I was overstepping, that protecting my little sister didn't give me the right to humiliate a fellow head disciple. He was wrong on both counts. I don't share, and I don't warn twice. One burst of light later, he was gone, and somewhere above us a dragon roared like the sky itself agreed with me. Word spread fast. Jin Yu had been a head disciple of real standing, with a brother in seclusion who wouldn't take this quietly. My little sister wasn't grateful either. She told me to stop being so full of myself, that she never asked for protection, and if I wanted to prove something, I could start by telling her who my real mother was. We traded barbs. Maybe I was making up for old wrongs, maybe I just liked watching her suffer. She swore she'd make me feel every bit of the pain I'd caused her. I told her to work harder then. That's when the immortal Taoist Palace's law enforcement team found me, reminding head disciple Gu to mind the rules before my overdue visit to the elders. What I didn't see was Jin Yu's spirit clawing at his brother Jinju, begging to be avenged. Jinju wasn't naive. He knew his brother had asked for it. But family honor doesn't care about fault. He made himself a promise. Justice would be served, one way or another. Meanwhile, some golden-horned upstart was already planning his own breakthrough, bragging that I'd be nothing but a stepping stone to becoming the strongest of the young generation. Let him dream. Back at Sovereign Peak, my guardian dragon welcomed me home, and my stewards caught me up. The great Xia Empire's prince had broken into the sacred realm, and Imei of the 9-tailed heavenly fox tribe wanted an audience. 6 months away, and I already knew what mattered. The immortal Taoist palace had to become my ally, not my rival, if I meant to reach the upper realm. None of the other disciples worried me. The great elder did a relic who'd propped up this palace through several epochs, and the one soul here who might actually sense the demon hiding under my skin. So I stopped waiting and cashed in every fortune point I had. Sacred Sovereign, Intermediate to Pinnacle, gone in a blink. Then Quasi-God, all 3 stages, gone just as fast. Then True God itself, stage by stage, until I broke into ground even I didn't have a name for, the Quasi-Heavenly God realm. I was becoming something the old rules couldn't measure anymore. I'd started dreaming bigger than survival. What if I just became the final boss myself, the one every hero in this world had to fear? While I turned that thought over, a familiar visitor was led inside. Imei, the Fox tribe's head disciple I'd long since broken to my will, dropped to her knees and called me master. She reported back a year spent hunting rare physiques and cores, plundering corpses and techniques from rival clans, all shipped home for me. I told her she'd done well. Meanwhile, on a mountain path far away, the great elder crossed paths with a fierce young stranger who wasn't sightseeing. She said she was hunting a person. I wasn't there, but I heard it later. The great elder asked if she wanted her brother's stolen prize back. She said no, she just wanted him to suffer for the pain he'd caused her. Impressed, he set a price, beat my 10,000-year record on the immortal Taoist path and earn her place. She swore she could. She didn't know he'd already set a trap. What I heard was that the girl arrived flanked by talk of dragon-blessed bones, drawing a golden-armored cultivator named Chu Union, head disciple of the great Chu Taoist Empire, who greeted the great elder with practiced respect. The old man wasted no time. He assigned Chu Union to escort her straight to the immortal Taoist path. Chu Union had his own angle. Word was this girl held evidence that could bring down my family, and his empire had feuded with mine for generations. The enemy of his enemy, he figured, was worth cultivating. So he warned her the path could wreck her mind if she pushed too hard. She brushed him off. She'd manage fine on her own. Walking toward the path, the sect turning to stare, Chu Union tried to poison her against me, called me ruthless, said I treated family worse than animals. She didn't bite. She told him to mind his own business, and if he had a problem with me, say it to my face. He was baffled. Hadn't she come hating me? I showed up with Ime at my side, and the crowd fell quiet. Head disciple Gu, head disciple Yi, they whispered. I couldn't resist needling her. Only days since we'd met, and she already had a suitor tailing her. Why not let me test him? She rounded on me, furious. Why are you here? Gu changed. Chu Union, playing escort under the great elder's orders, tried lecturing me about Gu Zioner like he had any claim to make. I brushed him off, told him I was talking to my sister, and he was the one interrupting. That was all it took. He rounded on me, snarling that I didn't get to do whatever I wanted with him. So, what if I do? I asked him flat and watched the color drain from his face. Around us the whole courtyard held its breath. The other disciples all agreed Chu Union was outmatched, and that running from this fight would cost him everything. Lose, and he'd get a second chance. Flinch, and he'd never recover. He didn't flinch. Fire wrapped his fist, and he came at me screaming his dragon rain palm, throwing everything he had into one scorching strike. I barely moved. Is this all you can do? I asked, and let my own strength answer for me. That attack was supposed to be the pride of the great Chu Empire's heir. I tore through it without breaking stride. The crowd went dead silent, whispering that I'd already reached the sacred sovereign realm destined for true immortality, and that none of them would dare stand against that. Even Zioner stared, shaken, wondering just how strong I really was. Chu Union spat blood and laughed anyway. So what if I was mid-sacred sovereign? He said. He wasn't done. He tore into his bloodline's deepest technique, dragon transformation, roaring that he'd beat me here today or die, proving his will to cultivate. I just watched him come. Gu Zioner cried out my name, half a warning, half something else. I didn't need the warning. One slap, that's all it took to shatter Chu Union's dragon form and drop him cold. The crowd got the message fast. Fight me for the succession, and you end up exactly like him. Zioner rounded on me, furious I'd made a scene over her. You may ask why I hadn't killed him. Murdering a prince in public invites trouble. This was a message to the elders. While I lived, nobody else gets named successor. I needled Zioner, asked if she wasn't touched. I defended her. She wasn't having it, so I told her. Chu Union planned her humiliation from day one. I told her straight, only I get to bully her, nobody else. In my head I was already laughing. In any other story she'd hate me for this, then spend years outgrowing everyone's expectations just to spite me. So I played along, told her I couldn't wait to see her break my record, that I actually believed in her. She froze, stunned. Good, let her stay confused. Zioner didn't waste breath threatening me twice. She just started climbing. 1, 2, 3. The crowd counted floors like a heartbeat. By 10, she'd buried every branch cousin who'd tried before her. By 14, she'd matched Chu Union's old best, and she kept going, hunting my record floor by floor. She stopped 1 floor shy of my record. Something about our shared bloodline made breaking it feel hollow to her. Standing over her, I couldn't help twisting the knife, telling her I was disappointed she hadn't gone further. She snapped back that I'd never bully her again and stormed off, red-faced. That fury of hers was pure fuel. My system chimed and dropped 9,200 destiny points straight into my ledger, paid for entirely by her humiliation. She swore she'd crush me one day fair and square. I just smiled. Let her try. Every attempt only made me richer. What I only learned much later. Far away, Missy was still carrying guilt over her brother Yi Chen months after his death, when her own elder brother cornered her with my name again, insisting rumors now painted me as a reincarnated true immortal who'd casually beaten a rival prince and broken into the sacred sovereign realm's intermediate stage. Turns out I'd become his obsession. He called himself the reincarnation of an ancient emperor, but admitted true immortals outranked emperors, and I'd already cleared a cultivation stage he hadn't touched. Before he could brood further, a servant burst in. Some upstart named Yiling had gathered a crowd, demanding a duel to make his own name off him. His sister argued they'd already paid Yiling off fair and square, but her brother wouldn't dodge a promise, opportunist or not, and went to face him anyway. Meanwhile, whispers rippled through the celestial Wushuang dynasty's court. An ancient realm called the Extreme Yin Heavens was stirring, and every great power scrambled to found a shared true immortal academy before it arrived. I remembered the primordial immortal spirit that every race once tore itself apart fighting over until it simply vanished. Truth was, I'd taken it myself. Cradling the unconscious woman in my arms, I marked her a pawn worth protecting, then turned to my next target, the ancient reincarnation talisman carried by whoever now bore the reincarnated emperor's mantle. Was his name Yiling? That question was still turning in my head when I went to see the great elder, the sage now training my sister Zioner. He wasted no time getting to the point, demanding to know why I'd bothered showing up at all. I told him I only came to thank him, though he clearly wasn't buying it. Zioner wasn't buying my kindness either. She accused me outright of gouging out her Taoist bone to hide my own demonic nature. I brushed her off, calling it a family matter I'd settle myself. Then I needled the great elder, wondering aloud if he'd go too hard on her because of me. Lightning cracked around him. He demanded to know if I was doubting his morals. Zioner didn't hold back either, calling out the evil and shitty old men right to his face. Instead of exploding, the great elder laughed, impressed a junior finally dared speak to him like that, and swore he'd personally train her until she could crush me. I pushed once more, and what if he couldn't? He staked his own position on it, exactly the promise I'd been fishing for. Walking away, I let them wonder whether I'd baited the old man on purpose so he'd train her harder, or whether I had some other angle entirely. The system chimed fortune points and face points, harvested clean off Zioner's suspicion. I told her I was relieved, gave a small parting nod, and left them muttering that I was too calculating for my own good. Zioner asked if he was all right. He admitted I'd made his blood boil and called my methods nearly demonic, ordering her to train until she could beat my face unrecognizable. Alone, she pressed him on why I'd used her bones to mask my demonic character. Even a sage like him, he admitted, couldn't find a trace of that darkness in me, which only meant it was buried deep. Back on my own, I reflected on the leads I'd planted for Zioner. Sharp as she was, she'd surely traced them to that old incident by now. But the divine path was about to open, and I had bigger preparations to make. I could have cashed my fate points for tools, but none would match my world seed fragments fused with my void power. This was the miniature world the world seed had conjured inside me. I was its creator, its god over every life in it. I asked the system if predicting its future would cost fate points. The answer, fate points were omnipotent, enough of them could buy any future, just as I'd suspected. I raised my hand, called it to rise, and watched a world tear itself up from nothing. Controlling everything like this felt intoxicating. I could already picture how spectacular it'd look once the path split open. I was ready, except for one loose thread. Mingkong, my reincarnated fiancée, had memories of her own now, and if she wanted revenge, she wouldn't waste her shot. Then a divine phoenix dropped out of the sky over the ancient city of Obsidian, and the street froze to stare. Whoever rode a phoenix like that had to be royalty. One look and I was half dreaming, I'll admit. But the real story was Yiling. He'd clawed his way to fame in this city, allying with clan after clan until he outshone even me. Now sitting at the ancient sacred emperor realm holding exactly what I wanted, the ancient reincarnation talisman. It was going to be mine. At night, an uneasiness hit me out of nowhere. My companion felt it too. I brushed it off as nerves from too many clan meetings. Then a spell circle flared blue overhead. Someone screamed for me to watch out, and raw power tore down and slammed into everything around us. I came up bleeding, red energy still whipping past my head, screaming the only question that mattered: who was it?